Sarah and David had been married for 10 years, and to the outside world, they were the definition of a perfect couple. Their friends often admired their relationship, calling them an example of true love. David was a successful businessman, running his own company, while Sarah dedicated her time to managing their home and social life. They lived in a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood, attended charity events together, and took vacations that looked picture-perfect in the photos Sarah posted online. But behind the smiles and affectionate gestures, something had begun to shift. Sarah started noticing small changes in David's behavior. At first, they seemed harmless. Little things she brushed off as nothing more than stress from work. He would come home late, claiming that business meetings ran longer than expected. His phone, once casually left on the dining table, was now always in his pocket or face down. Whenever it buzzed, he would quickly pick it up and leave the room, speaking in hushed tones. These changes were subtle, yet they left a strange feeling in Sarah's gut, an unease she couldn't explain. Then came the weekends. Saturdays were once reserved for lazy mornings, where they would have breakfast together, talk about their week, and plan their day. But now, David found reasons to step out. Urgent work matters, last-minute client meetings, or sudden calls from colleagues needing his advice. The frequency of these absences increased, and Sarah was left alone more often than not. Whenever she asked about his whereabouts, he gave vague responses, sometimes even showing irritation at her questioning. She didn't want to be the kind of wife who doubted her husband, so she convinced herself that she was overthinking. But the feeling of doubt only grew stronger. One night, as she did the laundry, she picked up David's shirt and was immediately hit with the scent of an unfamiliar perfume. It wasn't hers, and it wasn't something he typically wore. The fragrance was floral and strong, too distinct to be a coincidence. Her hands trembled as she brought the fabric closer to her nose, trying to tell herself that there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe it came from a colleague, a casual encounter, or a business event. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. Sarah started paying more attention. She noticed that David had started dressing differently, paying extra attention to his appearance, using a cologne he had never worn before and styling his hair with more effort. His gym sessions had also become longer, yet he didn't seem any more exhausted than before. His phone, now always protected with a passcode, would occasionally light up with messages that he ignored in her presence. When she asked who it was, he would dismiss it as nothing important. The final straw came when she walked past him while he was texting. Just as she glanced at the screen, he quickly tilted it away, locking it instantly. For a brief second, she had seen the name of the contact, LC, a name she had never heard him mention before. Her heart pounded as she pretended not to notice. But at that moment she knew something was very, very wrong. Sarah couldn't shake the unease that had settled in her chest. The name LC lingered in her mind, a puzzle piece that didn't fit. She tried to rationalize it, convincing herself it could be a business associate, a harmless friend, or even an abbreviation for something work-related. But her instincts told her otherwise. The secrecy, the sudden changes in David's behavior, and the scent of unfamiliar perfume weren't coincidences. She needed to know the truth. One evening, while David was in the shower, Sarah saw his phone on the bedside table. It was locked as always, but she had memorized his passcode months ago when she had seen him enter it absent-mindedly. Her hands shook as she picked up the phone, her heart pounding so loudly she could hear it in her ears. She hesitated for a moment, knowing that whatever she found could change everything. Taking a deep breath, she unlocked the phone and navigated to his messages. Her stomach twisted as she scrolled through the conversations. Among the usual work-related chats and friendly exchanges, one thread stood out: the messages from LC. As she opened the conversation, her worst fears were confirmed. The messages were flirtatious, filled with inside jokes, compliments, and secretive plans to meet. The timestamps revealed that David had been texting this person late at night, long after Sarah had gone to bed. Some of the messages were deleted, but the ones that remained were enough to paint a clear picture of betrayal. She clicked on the contact details, expecting a generic phone number, but what she saw made her blood run cold. The full name displayed was Rebecca Collins. Sarah recognized the name instantly. Rebecca was a lady constable from the local police department. The realization hit her like a wave. Not only was David cheating on her, her mind raced as she tried to process everything. Questions flooded her thoughts. How long had this been going on? Where had they met? Was Rebecca using her position to protect David from something? Sarah's hands clenched into fists as anger replaced the initial shock. She had been played for a fool, believing David's lies while he carried on his secret relationship right under her nose. Determined to gather more evidence, she searched his emails and call logs. There were frequent calls to Rebecca, often during his so-called late-night meetings. She found receipts for expensive dinners at restaurants Sarah had never been to with him. She even discovered a hotel booking made under his name just last week. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together, and the picture they formed was devastating. Sarah knew she couldn't confront David without solid proof. If she accused him now, he would deny everything and find a way to cover his tracks. She needed to be smart, to plan her next move carefully. Instead of letting emotions take over, she decided to play the long game. She would gather more information, expose his lies, and make sure he had no way out. Whatever David and Rebecca were hiding, Sarah was determined to uncover it, no matter what it took. Sarah knew she couldn't act impulsively. Confronting David now would only give him the chance to manipulate the situation, twist the truth, or destroy the evidence. If she wanted to expose him, she had to be strategic. She decided to dig deeper, carefully planning her next move. Her first step was to create a fake social media account. Using a generic name and a profile picture pulled from the internet, she carefully crafted a persona. A woman who seemed interested in David's business. She sent Rebecca a friend request, hoping that curiosity would make her accept. To her, relief. Within a few hours, Rebecca approved the request, allowing Sarah access to her profile. Scrolling through Rebecca's posts, Sarah found subtle clues that confirmed her suspicions. Rebecca frequently posted about late-night outings, fancy dinners and vacations that coincided with David's unexplained absences. Some of the photos were taken at places Sarah recognized, restaurants David had claimed were for work meetings, locations he had visited without telling her. Even more damning were the cryptic captions filled with suggestive remarks about a special someone who made her life exciting. It wasn't direct evidence, but it was enough to strengthen Sarah's case. Determined to lure Rebecca into revealing more, Sarah initiated a conversation through the fake account. She pretended to be an admirer of David's business, casually, bringing up his name to gauge Rebecca's reaction. To Sarah's astonishment, Rebecca responded eagerly, speaking about David with familiarity and excitement. She made comments about his charm, his intelligence, and even hinted at their relationship in a way that was impossible to misinterpret. Sarah continued the act, subtly steering the conversation towards their meetups. With careful wording, she managed to get Rebecca to admit that she and David were planning to spend the upcoming weekend at a private lodge outside the city. It was the confirmation Sarah needed, proof that their affair wasn't just emotional, but physical. The betrayal was complete. But as she pieced everything together, Sarah realized there was something more to this than just an affair. Rebecca wasn't just another woman. She was a police officer, someone who had access to sensitive information. Why would David risk his reputation and marriage for her? Was there more to their relationship than just passion? Sarah began to suspect that their connection wasn't just personal, it was tied to something bigger. She knew she couldn't take this to David directly. He would find a way to dismiss her claims, make excuses, or turn the blame onto her. Instead, she decided to expose him in a way that left no room for denial. She needed someone who had the authority to hold both David and Rebecca accountable. Sarah made a bold decision. She gathered all the evidence she had: screenshots of messages, social media posts, and the details of their upcoming meeting. Then she reached out to an internal affairs officer within the police department, providing everything she had uncovered. What she didn't realize was that by setting this trap, she was about to uncover something far more dangerous than just an affair. The night of David and Rebecca's planned meeting arrived, and Sarah's heart pounded as she waited for news. She had done everything in her power to set the trap. Now, it was out of her hands. The internal affairs officer she had contacted had taken her claims seriously, especially after seeing the screenshots and call logs. They had promised to investigate further, and Sarah had provided them with the exact location where the couple would be meeting. All she could do now was wait. Hours passed, and Sarah's phone remained silent. Doubt began creeping in. What if they had changed their plans? What if David had sensed something was off and backed out? She had risked everything by reaching out to the authorities, and the thought of it all being for nothing made her restless. But then, just past midnight, she received a call. It wasn't from David. It was from the officer she had contacted earlier. The officer's voice was tense, and what he revealed made Sarah's blood run cold. David and Rebecca had indeed gone to the lodge as planned, but when the authorities arrived to confront them, they discovered something far worse than an affair. Inside Rebecca's car, hidden beneath the seats, officers found large sums of unaccounted cash, documents linking Rebecca to illegal activities, and a burner phone containing messages with multiple contacts, some of them known criminals. Sarah listened in shock as the officer explained that Rebecca wasn't just a cheating wife's worst nightmare. She was under investigation for corruption, bribery, and involvement in covering up serious crimes. She had been using her position in the police force to manipulate cases, making evidence disappear in exchange for money. The deeper they dug, the more they uncovered. And David, he wasn't just her lover, he was involved too. Sarah's hands trembled as she tried to process it. All this time she had thought David was simply being unfaithful. She had imagined betrayal in the form of secret meetings, hidden gifts, and whispered phone calls. But this was so much worse. He hadn't just betrayed their marriage, he had entangled himself in something criminal, something dangerous. The officer informed her that both David and Rebecca had been taken into custody. While Rebecca faced serious charges related to corruption, David's involvement was still being investigated. However, initial evidence suggested that he had been laundering money through his business, using Rebecca's position to ensure his illegal transactions remained hidden. The business meetings he had claimed to attend weren't just a cover for their affair. They were real, but for all the wrong reasons. Sarah felt a wave of nausea wash over her. The man she had loved, trusted, and built a life with wasn't just a liar. He was a criminal. And while she had set out to expose his infidelity, she had ended up uncovering a web of deception far greater than she could have ever imagined. The perfect life she had believed in was gone, replaced by a reality she wasn't sure she was ready to face. Sarah's world unraveled in the days following the raid. The shock of witnessing her husband and Rebecca handcuffed and led away by the police had given way to a heavy, unyielding silence. The news spread like wildfire throughout the town, and soon every headline and news broadcast carried the scandal. Reporters detailed the sordid affair intertwined with corruption and bribery, and photographs of David in a suit and Rebecca in uniform became symbols of betrayal and criminality. As the media frenzy grew, Sarah found herself thrust into the center of a storm she never asked for. In the courtroom, whispers and stares followed Sarah as she sat silently, her eyes fixed on the stern faces of the judges and the guilty expressions of the accused. The trial unfolded slowly, each day dragging on with testimonies and evidence that painted a picture of deception far deeper than she had imagined. The prosecutor presented the text messages, call logs, and social media evidence Sarah had painstakingly gathered, leaving little room for doubt. David's defense tried to argue that the affair was a misguided lapse in judgment, but the evidence of his involvement in laundering money and the meticulous records of his secret meetings made their arguments crumble. For Sarah, each session in the courtroom was a painful reminder of the life she thought she knew. The woman who once cherished love and loyalty now sat among strangers, her eyes haunted by memories of a trust broken beyond repair. As the verdict approached, the tension in the room was palpable. When the judge pronounced the sentence, David, facing years in prison for his financial crimes, and Rebecca charged with corruption and bribery, a wave of relief mingled with sorrow washed over her. It was not a victory, but it was a final acknowledgement of the truth that had long been hidden. Outside the courthouse, the world continued to turn. Friends and neighbors expressed their condolences and support, though many struggled to reconcile. The image of a charming husband with that of a convicted criminal. The scandal had permanently altered the town's fabric, leaving behind a sense of disbelief and caution. In the midst of it all, Sarah filed for divorce. The papers symbolized an end to the life she had once built, a life steeped in deception and hidden sins. As Sarah walked away from the courthouse for the last time, she felt a strange mix of pain and liberation.